Hello, parents. My name is Jacqueline Dizney, or as the kids call me, Ms Dizney, and I teach seventh grade language arts. There are two of us. Mrs. Carlson is the other one, but so half the seventh grade have me, and the other half have Mrs. Carlson. So usually when you guys come visit me in my classroom, you can see that it is very bright in here. I have lots of Christmas lights and bright colors and lamps, and I like to think of my room as pretty fun. And the kids, I think, really like all the different lighting I have going on in here. So unfortunately, you guys won't be able to see that this year. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to present to you the exact same thing I would present to you as if you were in my classroom. So if you'd like to follow along, I'm just going to follow some of the points that you guys need to know and would probably want to know about your student teacher. So here we go. So like I said, I am Jacqueline Dizney. I was born and raised right here in Speedway, Indiana. I have been I graduated from Speedway High School. I went to Speedway Junior High, where I now teach. And ironically, this was actually my seventh grade English classroom as well. And I live here, I work here, I coach here. I am very much a Speedway person. My parents actually both work and worked in Speedway schools as well. My mom actually went to Speedway schools when she was going through school. And then she became a teacher here several years later, and actually was a teacher in this classroom for several years before she passed away. So I know a lot of the kids that are in my room now, their siblings had my mom, which is just super awesome to be a part of. My dad is the one that everybody knows. He is Mr. Dizney, the assistant superintendent of Speedway schools. He was the junior high principal when I was here. So my family just lives and revolves around Speedway and their school system. I graduated from IUPUI with a degree in secondary English education. I have a minor in reading and a concentration in writing. So I just have all the boxes of the English department checked off, I guess. This is my third year at Speedway. My first year I spent teaching at Beech Grove, and then actually when my mom passed away, I applied at Speedway Junior High and I got the job. So talk about bittersweet. But I really loved working at Beech Grove, but it just wasn't home like Speedway is. The other place that I look familiar to kids and parents usually is because I coach two sports at the high school. My sister and I actually coach the volleyball team, the varsity volleyball team at the high school. And then I also am the JV softball coach at the high school. So I'm very involved, and I bring that up only because a lot of times kids try to reach me like after school, and I'm almost always busy because I'm coaching all the time. If I'm not coaching, I am usually you know, I try to help with the clubs around the school and stuff like that. So I try to stay really active into what the kids are doing, but people always see me around the school system. So I like to, kind of jog your memory there. So maybe at the softball fields, maybe in the gym at CUA High School, who knows? And that's kind of me in a nutshell there. That's my family. Well, we've grown a lot since then. But that is also the volleyball team when they won state, or they went to state. So things you can expect for the upcoming school year is obviously reading and writing. More specifically, we will be reading nonfiction materials. And the way I do that is I try to bring in some of the things that are going on in the world that interest the kids, and I bring those things to them, and I have them read those and kind of dissect those, and they actually really love it because I'll pull stuff about Fortnite, I'll pull stuff about some of the different games or famous people in the world that make news, and I'll bring those in, and kids will get to dissect those and read those, and it hits their interest point, so then they're not even focused on the fact that it's nonfiction. So it actually works very, very well. Also, we have a new textbook this year, which I'll talk about in a minute, but they also offer a lot of nonfiction materials that are very junior high mind driven. So I'm excited for them to get into the textbook this year as well. We'll also be reading other types of literature, such as fiction stories, short stories, memoirs, things like that. And then we will also be doing some different types of writing. So we don't cover obviously all of the different types of writing, but we do, our main ones that we focus on are argumentative, informative, and narratives. I almost always start my year with an argumentative writing when I start my writing process, because I find that junior high kids really like to argue. I'm sure that doesn't surprise you at all. But with that being said, their argumentative essays turn out to be really good because they have that fuel to argue. And so if we kind of hone that in and make it into a cohesive piece of writing, I feel like I've done my job. Informative writing and narrative writings, most of them have already written a friendly letter to me this year, introducing themselves and their family and their lives. So that would kind of fit under the memoir narrative portion of our writing. They'll probably do one more type of narrative writing throughout the year, but with everything going on, I'm not exactly sure when that will take place. Our new standardized test is iLearn. So for as much as we hate to talk about standardized testing, I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. It is new, so it is all online. And what I mean by that is it's all on their Chromebooks. And last year, they actually didn't have to take it because of COVID and everything going on. This year, as of right now, we are taking iLearn. Now, that is subject to change. But iLearn essentially is the new iStep. The biggest difference between iLearn and iStep is iLearn actually kind of changes questions based on how the kids answer them, which is, I think, a lot more helpful than the iStep was, because it was just the same questions for everybody. Whereas iLearn, if you get a question right, it gets a little bit harder. If you get a question wrong, it gets a little bit easier, and so on and so forth. That takes place in April, May time, depending on our testing window. So we're far out from that, but I just want to make you aware that that is something that may be coming in our future. The last thing I want to make you aware of is we are taking the NWEA this year. So before, we were taking the STAR reading test 4 times a year. And what that does is it allows us to show their growth over the year. So they've already taken NWEA once, and they'll take it again at the beginning of the next 9 weeks. They'll take it again in the third 9 weeks, and they'll take it again in the fourth 9 weeks. So yeah, it is kind of a lot, but at the same time, it's a great way to show documentation of their growth over the school year. And that's kind of how we use it. It's not a pass fail thing. In fact, they don't get a grade in my room for it, but I do keep those numbers, in a binder for my kids. So they can see, hey, at the beginning of the year, I was a 210, and by the end of the school year, I was a 220. So it shows them that over the school year, their reading scores are getting better, their writing scores and their reading comprehension and all of that stuff. So If you've been hearing about that a lot at home, I am sorry. We're just closing up our testing window this week. So that is just a little bit about the NWEA and iLearn. So things that go on in my classroom. Mondays are very busy days in my English classroom. And what I mean by busy is it can feel overwhelming to kids at times. Because on Monday, I try to give them all of the information they're going to need for the week. And what I mean by that is I give them a bunch of papers. We don't talk about all the papers. I just give them to them and they put them in their binders and we kind of dissect those papers throughout the week. So Mondays are pass back papers, check grades, get new papers, get new vocab. There's a lot of going on Monday. Tuesdays and Thursdays are what I call dive in days. So because we got all that information on Monday, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, that's where we really spend a lot of time dissecting those papers. So those are when we break down the vocab words. We talk about the different ways you can use those in your everyday life. Maybe we do some study games. Maybe we do some partner work, cut and paste activities, things like that. Things that really get the kids kind of up and moving, talking to each other, talking to me, really interacting with the things that are going on in our classroom. On Wednesdays, we call them Writing Wednesdays, and those are where we focus a little bit more on our writing skills. So those are going to be where maybe they write some type of reflection. Maybe they write, a short response, maybe a long response to something. It's not, a paper every Wednesday. It's just we're going to work on some grammar, some writing techniques, things like that. On Friday is when we take our vocab tests. We take one almost every Friday. They get 10 vocab words on Monday. We study them, we dissect them throughout the week. And then on Friday, they take a quiz. In the grade book, we've got two things. We've got one that says a quiz and one that says a test. I will almost never use the word test because I don't feel like it's very testy. It's more of a quiz. It's 10 questions. Sometimes at the end of readings and stuff like that, we'll take tests, but I am not a huge test person. I'm more of like, let's take some quizzes throughout this thing and then discuss it at the end or do some type of hands-on project or something of that nature. Things that you should be hearing about or seeing at home are binders and textbooks. So our binders are white this year, and they should hold things like our vocab, our bell works, the expectations for my classrooms, an assignment sheet, their writings, and any of the readings that I physically hand them. So every 9 weeks, we clean out this binder. About every 2 or 3 weeks, I go over all the things that should be in their binders. This is a way of keeping kids organized, keeping them on top of their own work and things of that nature. Our textbooks are, like I said, new this year. They're still Pearson. So Pearson does our standardized tests. So a lot of our online stuff will actually look very similar to what iLearn may look like in the future. Their textbooks are also editable, so they can actually tear out pages, write in them, highlight them, take notes in them. And we were really, really excited as an English department to get these for our kids because that's part of understanding or reading is being able to physically write and take notes on these things. And now they finally have a textbook like that. The downside is, though, that if students are losing these textbooks, those are their textbooks. So you would essentially have to purchase a new one if they lose theirs. Even though they are workbook material, it is an entire textbook within that workbook. So it's extremely important that they know where those are, they keep them in good condition because they do have to last us the whole year. Grading. So in your Power School, you will see things broken down into bellworks, vocab, quizzes / tests, which, like I said, you won't see tests very often, and then classwork / homework. anything we do in class is going to be classwork or homework. Even though they didn't take it home, I still mark it down as homework because it is something that we've done together in class. And instead of having like 15 different things in my grade book, I just broke them down into 5. So that's just kind of what you'll see in the grade book. My thoughts on homework. So this is, I think, a little surprising to some of my kids, and I'm sure it's surprising to some of my parents. If kids come home and they don't usually have homework for me, that is normal. My homework is very rare because kids have me for 2 hours every day. And if I were standing in front of them talking for 2 hours, they would all really hate me and they would probably remember nothing that I said. So a lot of days I give them, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, 5 minutes at the end of class, maybe 5 minutes after bell work, where they can be working on things that I've assigned them already. So essentially, they shouldn't need to take very much home to do. If they are, then that's a conversation that me and that student need to have because there should not be taking things home every day. I would say maybe once every other week they'll have a worksheet that they have to finish up. But even that is rare for kids that stay on top of their work in class. So don't be surprised if your kids go home and are like, I don't have homework from Ms Dizney ever, because if they're doing what they should be doing in class, they won't. The things they could be doing at home, if you're just like, I need them to be doing something. I strongly encourage them to read AR books, so accelerated reader books. These are books that kids get to choose. They are 100% their choice. I have told them that as an English teacher myself, I can recount hundreds of things I had to read that I didn't want to. And so I think it's extremely important that starting as early as 7th grade and hopefully before, they have the opportunity to choose something that they actually want to read and are interested in reading. So I have them go to our school library or my personal library and pick out books that interest them. I don't care if they're reading a 2nd grade book, if they're reading a college level book. My concern is if it's something that really interests them. So if they have books at home that they like to read, I strongly encourage that they are reading at home. The other thing is we do have vocab quizzes almost every Friday, and I encourage all my students to make a Quizlet so they can always be studying at home on Quizlet or however they deem necessary. They could maybe make note cards or something of that nature. But as far as just doing work at home, they shouldn't have very much, and it should not be very often. So I kind of touched on this already, but so star reading is AR, what I was telling you about. We used to do the star reading instead of NWEA. Instead, this year we're just using star reading as a way for them to take book quizzes when they are done reading their AR book. So these book quizzes are just reading comprehension questions. There's 10 of them. And if they pass with a 7, 8, 9, or 10, they get a piece of candy and they get to write it in the AR tracker. And they get a completion grade essentially for passing one AR test for this 9 weeks. The second 9 weeks, they'll have to pass 2 AR tests. The third 9 weeks, 3 AR tests. And then depending on the fourth 9 weeks, whether we have iLearn or not, is kind of dependent upon how many AR tests we'll have. Because if they're going to be testing for 2 or 3 weeks, I'm not going to make them take 4 AR tests. It's just not fair. So the AR quizzes are just online. They're just reading comprehension questions, and they're just a way for kids to kind of pat themselves on the back, say, hey, I read that book, I understood that book, and they get candy, which they love. My classroom page is on Google Classroom. Students have access to this. Parents, you can have access to this as well. All kids need to do is get onto their classroom page and invite you. So you may have to tell them that you want that done. The other thing that you parents always have access to is Power School. Power School is the only place that I keep their grades up to date. Even though Google Classroom has places for me to put grades, it doesn't really do me any good to place them in two areas because Power School is the only one that really matters as far as like the grade book goes. So Power School is where you will see your kids' missing assignments, their current grades, and things of that nature. The other thing that I have is a classroom Twitter. I have been told by my junior high kids that this is dying out and I need to change to a classroom Instagram, but I'm just not ready yet. So for right now, I do have a classroom Twitter. I have not been super active on that because it has not been very popular. So if you are a classroom or if you're a Twitter person and you want to join our online classroom, you can. I'll just post, quotes and maybe some reminders. And every once in a while, I'll put up some like funny, like school related things that I know some of the kids enjoy. And that is it for as far as my presentation goes. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to email me. My email is jacquelinedizney@gmail.com. I should have put that in my Google slide, but it is JACKLYNDIZNEY at speedwayschools.net. That is probably my quickest response, especially during the day. But you can always call the school and go through to my voicemail, and I can call you back when I get the opportunity. I'm much more of a morning caller. I will tell you that because I am busy after school. So if you would like to have a conversation via the phone, that is definitely something we can set up. Otherwise, I am very much looking forward to this year. I'm so happy to have these kids in class and out of class for those of kids that are staying home. And I'm very much looking forward to this school year with them. So as always, if you guys have any questions, any concerns, my email, my door, and my phone are always open. And I hope to have a wonderful year with your kids. Thanks.